Welcome to another edition of Dolphins in Depth, a Miami Herald podcast brought to you by the Miami Herald. I'm your host, Miami Herald columnist Omar Kelly. And today is the special guest of all special guests because he's my boo, Alain Poupart, former co-host of the All Dolphins podcast. All Dolphins is still his podcast. He's part of the SI Fan Nation, running the Dolphins website. And Poupart, tell them where they can find your work so we can get this out the way before I annoy you.
Before you annoy me? Yeah, you would never do that. You can find my work at si.com/NFL/Dolphins. And I'm on Twitter at Poupart NFL, my last name NFL, and also on YouTube on the All Dolphins podcast and wherever you get your audio podcasts.
And Poupart has been my podcast partner for a year. We usually watch practices together, but he wants his space from me right now. So he's giving me the cold shoulder. However, he will be back in my arms eventually. Training camp, he knows where to find me. And right now we're about to approach Dolphins mandatory minicamp this week. Obviously, let's hope that everybody shows up. I could tell you for a fact everybody is not participating. I would have a cardiac arrest if Teron Armstead stepped on a football field with a football jersey and helmet in hand. But I think there's some other players. I believe last year Tyreek Hill didn't participate in mandatory minicamp. Jaylen Ramsey didn't participate in mandatory minicamp.
Connor Williams.
Oh yeah, he skipped it and cost himself $93,000. And for the record, I would like to point out, even though I encourage Connor Williams, show up for the final 2 days of camp and save the money because you made your point. The fact that he suffered a potential career-ending knee injury, that the whole holdout was about basically not going into the final year of your deal without any guaranteed money. And here he is, potentially his career has ended because of a knee injury. I think Connor Williams made his point. And that is a great example of why players advocate and push to never play on an expiring contract. Now, on that note, one guy who got a contract extension, while it wasn't expiring because the Dolphins triggered his fifth-year option, was Jaylen Ramsey. The Dolphins made him one of the highest-paid players in the NFL. Obviously, when you look at the details of the deal, it's a pretty respectable deal. The first 3 years of it are locked tight. Fourth year, there are triggers in it in year two that will make like 2027 a guaranteed contract. Respectable money, $75 million in guaranteed money.
Respectable. Yeah, very respectable.
Yeah, definitely puts him way above where Devontae Smith, his peer, is. And I would say that's arguably one of the best wide receiving duos in the NFL in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. Good move or a little bit premature for you, Poupart, since I know how you feel about contract extensions.
How do I feel about contract extensions, Omar? By the way, since it's your podcast, I'm not going to correct you and say it was Jaylen Waddle, not Jaylen Ramsey. So I'll let that slide. Won't do it. Oh, I think I just did. Sorry.
Man, listen, we got too many Jaylens. You know that.
That is a good point. It could have been Jalen Phillips, too, who was also in the same situation as Waddle, heading into the fourth year of his contract, the fifth-year option already picked up. Here's the thing. I mean, Waddle's been everything the Dolphins could have asked for. I mean, he's a great teammate. He's played hurt. He's produced like crazy 3 straight years over 1,000 yards. First year sets an NFL rookie record for most receptions. The next year leads the NFL in average per reception. And then last year over 1,000 yards, even though he was battling injuries for a good part of the season.
Yes. And had a frustrated year.
He did. No, he did. And I think at some point he kind of admitted that.
Yes, he did admit that. It was a story that I wrote for alldolphins.com.
See, there you go. No, for Dolphins Fan Nation on si.com/NFL/Dolphins. It's complicated. There'll be a new name soon, I promise. As long the content is good, don't worry about the name and all that.
Mark it and figure out and know where to find it. But
pretty much. The only surprise, to answer your question, the only surprise is I think that the Dolphins would get a deal done for anybody before they got a deal done with Tua. That's a little bit surprising. That the Dolphins took care of Waddle, no, I think that's clear.
I thought when you look at where the money was going with wide receivers and how many wide receivers were lined up to get the money next, you had to look at this situation and say, hey, you either get ahead of this or it's going to cost you more. And it's kind of the same situation that you're in with Tua Tagovailoa, where you've got future quarterbacks coming up in terms of Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott, and you either get ahead of it or you're going to have to pay more for it. But let's stick the conversation to Jaylen Waddle. Would I have liked to have seen Jaylen Waddle do more producing for this 2024 season before I gave him a contract in the $24 million a year range? Yes, I would. I would have loved to have seen him be more productive than he was last season. Yeah, I mean, let's not act like last season wasn't his least productive year in the NFL.
Well, he was hurt more than he had been the previous 2 years.
Okay, but when it comes to a quarterback, you want to see 17 games of durability. But when it comes to Jaylen Waddle, you're okay. You're okay with missing a couple game here or there. I mean, we don't know where he is in terms of his development. We know he's good, but is he top 5 receiver salary in the league good?
No, but see, to me, I think we know exactly what he is, and I think he's been the same way for the past 3 years. He's like a stupid fast wide receiver who's a matchup problem for defensive coordinators, not to the same degree as Tyreek, but his speed is a problem. We saw it go back to the Green Bay game in 2022. He takes a short crosser and he just bursts around the edge, and there's nobody who can keep up with him other than Tyreek, who's running alongside him. I don't know that his game is ever going to necessarily change that much. Dolphins have used him on wide receiver screens, and this is where the beep speed comes into play, and he makes good use of it. And he'll drop the occasional pass. Once in a while, once in a blue moon, he'll make a leaping catch, but he's not necessarily known for like the stickiness. He's not Larry Fitzgerald or DeAndre Hopkins.
Or Devontae Parker.
As far as 50-50 balls, no, correct, absolutely. The recently retired Devontae Parker, we should have.
But here's my thing, and I like Jaylen Waddle. Mm-hmm. I think he is one of the best guys in the locker room. I'm a big fan of his work. Is he a top 5 highest paid receiver player, and can he take over the game?
No.
Okay. But you just paid him like he could take over a game.
Well, but again, you're arguing against your previous point, which is, and this is kind of like a weird mentality to me, that automatically, if you're the next guy up, you should get a higher salary. I mean, I understand that that's the way it mostly works, but does it make any sense?
I mean, that's the way business is done. So,
okay, but then is it why, let's say, for example, Justin Jefferson is going to wait until everybody else gets done because I'm the best receiver, I want to get the most.
And Jamar Chase is probably going to wait till Justin Jefferson gets done, right, so that he could jump over that. The ego of athletes. This is the one thing that I learned. They just want $1 more than the other guy. Not that it matters. Not that it's different, but they want to, for their 10 minutes, be able to say they're the highest paid player at their position. Or now Jaylen Waddle can say, I'm the highest paid number 2 receiver in the NFL. Okay. Yeah. But here's a more important question. And, I've been hammering this point probably all offseason. And I get it. He's got a laundry list of off-field incidents. You know who he is, in terms of character. But last I checked, he's probably the most dynamic offensive weapon in the NFL. And some person who happens to be sitting here on this podcast believes that he's the number one reason, and not Tua Tagovailoa, that the offense is as dynamic as it is. Yes, it's you. Now that every receiver in the world is making $24 million, when last year Tyreek Hill was the highest paid receiver in the league at $24 million. At what point do you look at, does Tyreek Hill bust into Chris Greer's office and say, "Pay me my money," especially when he's got a $45 million cap hit in 2026, which there's absolutely no chance that the Dolphins are honoring. So basically, 2025 is his last year, and it's not guaranteed.
Correct. He's got 0 guarantees beyond 2024, which is why I wrote on SI.com/NFL/Dolphins.
Wouldn't it be great if it was just so simplified?
Yes, it will get there. I promise it will get there. So I wrote on the website that Tyreek's reaction to the Waddle contract was like, couldn't be more happier. Well, yeah, because he's thinking now like, okay, now take care of me. And you saw his appearance on a recent podcast. I believe the name of it was Around the Bar, where he kind of like hinted, Chris Greer, I want to stay in Miami forever, want to retire there. So sign me. Hi, Chris, sign me. I don't know if there have been discussions or suggestions from Tyreek's agent, Drew, who's had, I would imagine that Drew's had conversation with Chris Greer saying,
I think Drew has gotten 2 deals done for receivers this week.
Correct. But here's the thing is the fact that the Dolphins did not restructure Tyreek or extend Tyreek this offseason when they were looking for ways to create cap space.
And it would have been the easiest move to do.
Correct. Plus the fact he's got no guaranteed money beyond this year. Plus the fact, as you mentioned, let's just say he can be a little bit of a PR headache at times. Is that a polite way of putting it?
PR nightmare, maybe.
Yeah, I want headache.
He's uncontainable.
Correct. Tyreek's going to Tyreek.
That is true. Tyreek is going to Tyreek, and Tyreek is going to troll. But here's the question. You're Mike McDaniel. You built this entire offense around him. Yep. You're probably still campaigning for him to become the NFL's first 2,000-yard receiver because you want that on your resume as Mike McDaniel. You do. It's not about Tyreek. It's you who wants it on your resume, in my opinion. And if he had stayed healthy the last 2 years, Tyreek probably would have been a 2K wide receiver.
Last year, yep. I'm not sure about 2022, but okay.
Don't you think that while Mike McDaniel's advocating for Tua to get his money and Waddle to get his money, that he's not looking at Chris Greer and saying, let's address this Tyreek situation before 4 other receivers get signed, and then the going rate is $30 million a year? In real money.
No, I agree. I'd love to be doing this with you right now, but I agree. That's exactly, I think, what McDaniel's doing. I mean, the whole scheme is built around the stupid speed they have, not only with Hill and Waddle, but in the backfield as well with Mostert, Jaylen Wright, and Devon Achane. And the number one piece over there, the one who I think causes the most sleepless nights for opposing defensive coordinators, is easily Tyreek Hill. Yeah. And does this offense look the same, even though they'll still be fast if the Dolphins do move on from Tyreek Hill in 2025? I think this is with the team that they've created, for better or worse, for its shortcomings in December and in January, for all the success it produces early on in the season. This is the team they've created, and are the Dolphins really willing to walk away from the most important piece in that identity, while at the same time sending out all the signs that that's exactly what they're going to do?
Yeah, the minute you get rid of Tyreek Hill, you are officially rebuilding. And I don't necessarily know if that's going to be a healthy place for this organization. But we shall see. That's a chapter for later on in the Dolphins saga as the Dolphins world turns. But let's get into the important chapter now, which is what we've seen from OTAs and what we take into this mini camp session. From my opinion, there are a couple of takeaways that I took from OTAs. One, I am not of the opinion anymore that Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are both going to be healthy and ready for this regular season 1 week opener. While it's not out of the realm of possibilities, I think that it's more realistic that they begin the season on the PUP, and on the bye week, they're brought back. I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've had from OTAs, because realistically, not a lot of guys have worked. Now, in the one practice that we've seen of Tua Tagovailoa, he was dealing, but it was 7-on-7 drills, no pass rush. I expect every quarterback not named Ryan Tannehill to be dealing during those sessions. Am I telling a lie? Am I telling a lie?
Josh Allen as a rookie was probably spraying the ball all over the place too.
Yes, and Josh Allen as a rookie, and let me not even get into John Beck. Woo! Anyway, you and I are both old enough to remember John Beck in training camp, and it wasn't a pretty thing. But obviously, right now he's a quarterback expert, and he's helping Ryan Tannehill. He's helping Tua Tagovailoa take his game to another level. Cool. But I'm also a little bit concerned about the defensive line. And I understand what they're going to run right now. I can see the seam. I can see the vision. To me, I have a little bit of concern about the nose tackle spot. While Tier Tart has a respectable resume, I watched him in his conditioning drills. It was not pretty. Now, I'm not expecting a 340-pound man to be running a 4.7, 4.8, 40 time. Let me put that out there. But he shouldn't be 20 yards behind the rest of his teammates. And then Benito Jones, does it do it for you there? And do you think that they have enough 3-4 ends? Because it looks like that's what they're going to be using.
Well, some of those guys might play that. They're going to mix a lot of things up front, I think, a lot of different looks, which is kind of what Baltimore did. And as we keep trying to get an idea of what kind of defense they're going to run. I mean, we've had 2 looks at practices, and we kind of see some things, but I don't know that's going to give us a clear picture. No, they're a little bit light up front in terms of defensive linemen, not edge guys. They signed a whole bunch of guys, but they're guys. They're guys. If we're going to be trying to, I
don't even call those edge, because really the Jaylen Phillips, I think we're confusing people when we call those edge, because the Jaylen Phillips, the Bradley Chubbs, the Chop Robinsons, the Shaq Barretts, the Muhammad Kamara, those are the edges technically.
Isn't that what I just said?
No. I'm talking about the interior defensive tackles.
Correct.
It's
what there.
It's not good talent-wise.
No, I agree with you. Because again, they signed like 37 guys, as I keep saying, but they're 37 guys who put together, chances are not going to make a ton of an impact, and it puts a lot of pressure on Zach Sealer to be that dude. And we all like Zach Sealer, and we think he's a really, really good player. But the question still remains: how much did he benefit from playing next to Christian Wilkins?
I think Christian Wilkins benefited from playing next to him.
That's possible, but we could get a clearer idea if nobody lines up next to Zach Sealer and balls out, and if they don't sign your man crush Calais Campbell, for example, if they don't sign him, and it's either T.R. Tart or Jonathan Harris or Benito Jones or Neville Gallimore.
Don't forget about Deshaun Hand. I think he's clearly the starter right now.
I hadn't gotten to Deshaun Hand.
Well, you're listing him like 4th.
I wasn't in any particular order. Isaiah Mack, David Nixon Jr.
You absolutely work in order. Don't pretend like you don't.
Sometimes.
All right. Good.
But anyway, the bottom line is no, they don't have anybody. And somebody was asking me like the biggest concern on the team right now. I'm not so sure it's not the defensive line.
Oh, absolutely, it's the defensive line. And here's the thing. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with what I'm seeing from the standpoint. I know this is Anthony Weaver's expertise, and maybe this is his opportunity to show I can get it done with any defensive line kind of situation. Yep. But the last time we looked at him as a defensive coordinator was the Houston Texans in a season where they lost J.J. Watt, and that defense was hot, booty cheeks trash, primarily because they didn't have good enough defensive line play. And for me, the worst case scenario for this season is you don't have enough defensive line play. Let's just say one of your starters goes down, and then your whole unit is full-fledged backup, second-tier guys, jag quality players. How are you going to stop anybody against the run? How are you going to protect your linebackers? And they're all smallish linebackers.
Yep.
And you know, let's not pretend like injuries don't happen in the NFL, especially in the trenches.
They do not happen to the Dolphins. They don't.
Especially in December.
There you go.
Do you think that a late signing, and let's not even throw in Calais Campbell because I'm not sure he wants to play or isn't hunting for a legit title contender. Do you think that a waiver wire pickup or a late signee or a draft or a traded player can help rescue this defensive line?
By the way, did you basically dismiss the Dolphins as title contenders? Is that what you just did?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I mean, that was like a backhanded little.
Let me be real about it.
Go ahead.
You can have the number one offense.
Top-ranked offense, yes. Let's not forget that.
He's mocking me right now, people.
I would never.
You can have the top-ranked offense, and you can continue to juice up that offense, and you can make your plan to outscore people. But if you can't stop people from running the ball or stopping the pass or converting third downs or scoring in the red zone, your team's going to be trash. And I'm not sure I'm looking at a top 10 defense. And I don't care how much you score. If you don't have a top 10 defense, I'm not realistically going to put you in the title contender category.
No, except we don't totally know yet what the defense is going to be. And you said if they can't play defense, they're going to be trash. I'm like, whoa. I think if the top-ranked offense can continue what it did last year, maybe even build on it, which is the hope and the plan, I think that offense, at least through November, will be good enough to win games by itself. Now, with the problem is going to come in late December, January, when the Dolphin offense, no matter how good it is, even if it's still top ranked, and I'm going to keep using top ranked, by the way, it just amuses me. Even if it's still good and still top ranked, the points aren't going to be as easy to come by as we know, regardless of how good it is. I mean, and again, for anybody suggesting, well, what can he be great the entire year, even in the playoffs? The 99 Rams were kind of a standard for offenses in the playoffs. In the NFC Championship game, scored 11 points. And then when they won the Super Bowl, they scored 23. So their defense was as much a part of their win as was the offense. So, yeah, the big concern clearly is, and the big unknown is, what's that defense going to look like? We have a pretty good idea the offense is going to be really good.
Should be, depending on the offensive line, but should be.
Are we expecting the offensive line to be significantly weaker than it was last year?
I don't know. I haven't seen Aaron Brewer take a single snap. Liam Eichenberg right now. Liam Eichenberg, Robert Jones, Jack Driscoll. One of those guys are my starting guard opposite Isaiah Wynn. Do you feel comfortable there? I know I railed on Liam Eichenberg all last season, majority of last season, just a little bit, just a tad. But I saw potential, saw progress in games where he wasn't hurt like he was in the final month of the season, and in games where he was able to settle in at right tackle. Right now, he's the patch everything guy, and he's handling all of the center duties right now because Aaron Brewer is injured. But am I confident and comfortable with Liam Eichenberg being the starting right guard for the Miami Dolphins in all of 2024? Makes me a little Joe Philbin, makes me a little queasy. Jack Driscoll, I don't know him. And he's been a career backup for the last 4 years. Am I just so confident in Chris Greer and Marvin Allen's talent evaluation ability that I'm just going to stamp of approval on the offensive line, the unit that they haven't gotten right for since 2016? Since he's been the top executive in the organization. If there's anything you could criticize Chris Greer about with firm conviction, it's his inability to draft offensive linemen when they're not named Laramie Tunsil.
That's fair. That's fair. Can't knock any point you made. However, I would say this. Would you not agree that the scheme, the way it's designed, puts less pressure on the offensive line than probably any scheme in the NFL?
Not just the scheme, but the quarterback, yes. Yeah, I threw that in there.
Like I said, the scheme, which calls for the quarterback to make quick decisions and get rid of the ball quickly, which a lot of quarterbacks have the ability to do. Okay. But
Ryan Tannehill has the ability to do it? Okay, thanks.
Bring in Ryan Tannehill as if he's a standard.
He's a standard for average quarterbacking in the NFL. You know
By
it.
the way, I'm sure that you did see the stories from national outlets suggesting Ryan Tannehill will be the perfect backup for the Dolphins, right?
I'm like, who paid those writers? Who sent them money under the table to traumatize me? Listen, Ryan Tannehill isn't coming back here. Do you think Ryan Tannehill will survive in this precision passing offense?
No.
Like, no. That's absolutely no chance what his game is. Now,
Dude, I wrote a column like listing the 17 different ways why that makes no sense.
you didn't do 17. I know you did.
Okay, fine, I exaggerated. It was like 4.
All right, yeah. Yeah, the offensive line continues to be one of my issues with this team. I'm not going to say that I'm drastically concerned. I know what they are. I'm curious to see what they can be with Aaron Brewer if he could take the next step. Pass protection has been an issue. If you've seen him, and I know you have, he's kind of tiny. He's kind of small.
For an offensive lineman, yeah.
And that's the reason he went undrafted 4 years ago. And here the Dolphins are investing in him. Obviously, he's going to help you in the run game. He can get to the second level. But can he anchor against pressure? Can he anchor against the Chris Joneses of the world that are trying to collapse the pocket on Tua Tagovailoa? I don't know that, but we shall see. Let me ask you a little bit about this secondary. I know we're watching practice right now before this week, which is the start of mandatory minicamp, without Jaylen Ramsey, who I don't think is going to be participating in minicamp. And I don't think Jaylen Ramsey, if I'm Jaylen Ramsey, I'm not even sure I'm participating in training camp considering what happened to me last year. You disagree on that one?
No, but I think he will. I think he will. Teron Armstead's one guy who might say, like, listen, what happened to me? Look what happened to me last year in the joint practice against Houston. No. See you on September 8th or whenever they start the regular season.
Listen, I am fine with whatever Teron Armstead decides to do. If Teron Armstead wants to be in bubble wrap until the week before the regular season begins, like, that just gives Patrick Paul more opportunities to get himself ready, because we know we aren't going to see him until Teron Armstead gets hurt. So, which we both know is unfortunately inevitable. But I don't know if I'm Jaylen Ramsey, I'm thinking to myself, Cam Smith, this young guy, he needs a lot of work. I think he needs to take the bulk of the majority. I'm not sure I'm more than 10 snaps in training camp per day of teamwork.
Oh, no, I could see that. Oh, I can see that. But I thought you were talking about completely shutting him down. No, I could see him getting an extraordinarily light load. Absolutely.
And here's my thing, and I've asked Raheem Mostert about this because I and I've written about this in a Miami Herald column. Have we solved the riddle of December and January games? Have we solved the riddle of how can you sustain and survive and have a healthier roster in the final critical stages of the game? Have we solved this? What do we do about this finesse reputation and label we have? Because they're quite aware of it.
Who would ever dare call them a finesse team?
I do. Yeah, you do too. Don't pretend like you don't. And they're very aware of what we're saying about them, how they're perceived. Can't play in cold weather games. Basically level of competition, play to the level of their competition. And I'm not necessarily and basically physically fall apart as they've done the last 2 years because of injuries at the end of the season. I'm not sure outside of this very country club-esque OTA period that we're having right now that they've found a solution that will allow them to be better and healthier in December and January.
No, and I speak here from a non-scientific, non-medical point of view. Is I don't know how you prevent like an Achilles tear like Jalen Phillips had on Black Friday. I don't know how you prevent the torn ACL that Bradley Chubb had against Baltimore, other than get him the hell out of the game when the outcome's no longer in doubt. That was bad. But outside of that, I mean, we're talking, and then Tyreek gets rolled up because of the way he's tackled. I mean, no amount of training camp adjustment is going to prevent that. I'm seeing stories of like lightening the load on Tyreek. Well, that's not why he didn't get hurt because he practices too hard. He got hurt because the guy tackled him and basically fell on the outside of his ankle. Same with Waddle when he ran a reverse and he got tackled the same way. Unfortunately, as far as the injuries are concerned, and then Connor Williams is a torn ACL. I don't recall seeing a video exactly what happened. If it was foot got stuck in the turf or somebody sideswiped him, there's like a luck element in terms of avoiding injuries. So as far as that's concerned, I don't know that there's a whole lot you can do. And then if you again look at Teron Armstead, was it because they rushed him? If you look at because once he came back from the Houston injury, the game against Buffalo, somebody lands on the side of his.
They rolled up on him. Yep.
Yeah, and then against Washington, somebody kicks him while he's falling to the ground. I mean, that's fluke and that's bad luck. As far as this other issue is beating good teams down the stretch, I think what the problem is the Dolphins' margin for error is smaller because of the style they play. You can be not quite as sharp on your fundamentals and have more success if your game is basically smash mouth physical, as opposed to if everything is precision timing, that's a lot easier to throw off. Then I'm coming right at you, stop me.
Definitely. Let's address a little bit of mini camp in terms of what do you hope to see? What do you want to see during this 3-day practice session?
Nobody getting hurt. How's that? How's that for a brilliant answer?
That is a very good answer. It would be nice if I saw Odell Beckham Jr. work with Tua Tagovailoa. Do you have any concerns there that he's basically skipped the whole entire offseason program?
None whatsoever. And again, it's offseason. They'll get some reps together in mini camp. In training camp. So I don't. That's a concern. The two guys to me that I'm very curious to see and I want to see good things from is Chop Robinson. And again, understanding it was only an OTA, but last week we saw in a couple of running plays him like really shoot through the line very, very quickly. I mean, more quickly than I've seen other guys before. And that was like, whoa, okay. And then the other guy is Cam Smith, because you and I were both talking throughout all of training camp last year. That dude looked like he's going to be a player. And then he bit on a double move against Jacksonville in the preseason game, and all of a sudden he's like,
we never saw him again.
Yeah, then he's like on a carton of milk. I mean, like, have you seen this guy?
You know what's interesting? I'm watching him during practice and watching his antics, and unfortunately, a lot of it is just like lack of focus and messing around, and everybody's got a playful demeanor. I mean, Brent Grimes was probably one of the greatest players of this era, and if you saw Brent Grimes during a period, he's probably punting a football, like a period where he's not involved. He's probably walking on his hands, doing foolish things. But he was an established veteran. Do you think that Cam Smith will get a legit opportunity to show that he can be a contributor? And with that said, I want to point out that we spoke to Ethan Bonner during one of these OTAs, and he's bigger, which is intriguing.
You did? I missed Ethan Bonner.
No, I got Ethan Bonner. Ethan Bonner was there.
When did you get Ethan Bonner? I didn't see him.
First week of OTAs. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Missed him.
Do you think that Cam Smith can lock down that cornerback number 4 role?
Oh, okay. So Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller, and then Cater, Kohu / Nick Needham in the slot. If Nick Needham is not a full-time safety, which I would expect him to do.
Yeah. I think he's a nickel and a safety. I don't know if we're going to be seeing Nick Needham on the boundary anytime soon anymore.
I concur. And I think the Dolphins, to answer your question, would be crazy if they don't give this guy every opportunity to earn a role. Number one, because he was their top draft pick last year, and you didn't draft him just for his pretty eyes. Number two, because there's something there. I'm sorry. It could be, and I hope it doesn't. Yeah, I hope it doesn't turn out. It's not impossible. It's going to turn out that guy has all the physical tools, but doesn't have quite the makeup to ever become something. I hope that's not the case. It's not impossible that that's the case, but the Dolphins need to exhaust every avenue to give him the chance to succeed and be a contributor, and hopefully be a starter at some point before too long.
What is your favorite desperation? If I don't get this together, my career is over story from your time covering the Dolphins?
the top of my head, probably Paul Solia is the one who comes to mind, because he was like, and at first he was like, man, God, that's a big dude and should be so much better and doesn't do anything. And then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, guy
Light
becomes
bulb goes on.
becomes a baller. I'm sure there are others, and if you name me somebody, I'd probably go, yeah, that'd be a good one. But off the top of my head, he's the one that really jumps out.
You know who I've noticed during OTAs, and this is this is just, you're gonna probably just laugh. You're probably gonna chuckle. You know who's actually made plays during OTAs?
No, I know you're gonna say, and you're right. I can't chuckle. Right.
Like Channing Tindall? Where is this coming from? I'm like, that guy has been fast. He's been moving. Do you think like his third defense, a new defense, can make the light bulb come on?
Let's put it this way. I wouldn't bet a ton of money on it, but at least now I have some hope, as opposed to thinking dude's getting cut. So I think, yeah, maybe. Actually, that's another guy I'm going to be keeping an eye on during minicamp, see if he can build off what he did. There were back-to-back plays he broke up passes.
Yeah,
very
I've seen him. I've seen him as a blitzer. I've seen him make tackles in the backfield. Seen him hawk down check down passes to the backs. I was like, whoa, okay, look at you, Channing Tindall, putting all that athleticism to use.
Did you look at a roster and go, wait, Channing Tindall?
Yeah, I'm like 44.
41.
41. I was like, 41. Did Channing Tindall change his number? Somebody swap jerseys with Channing Tindall? Who are your top three guys you're going to be watching?
No, probably those three right there. Cam Smith, Chop Robinson, Channing Tindall. On offense, Jody Fortson. I saw him because my first eyeball look at him and the first open OTA was like, damn, does he look the part?
Yeah.
Big, moves very smoothly.
Moves like a wide receiver.
Yeah. So I see something there. And the Dolphins could wind up having a big decision to make, because Julian Hill, you don't think? Julian Hill has like bulked up, and he was big last year. I mean, damn, is he big?
Yes.
And they're keeping Jonnu Smith. They're keeping Durham Smythe.
Yeah. But they get keep 4. I think they get to keep 4. I don't think Julian Hill is a guy that you're going to release. Remember the way they praised him and loved on him last year as a rookie from Campbell University, and he's bigger. He's made plays. And, will he ever be a dynamic receiving threat? Probably not. But you don't think he's important in the Durham Smythe inline role?
Sure, but the problem is, here's the problem the Dolphins are going to have is between halfbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends, how many of those are you going to keep? Something's going to have to give at one position.
That's your boy, Chris Brooks.
Where's he been? We didn't see him in any.
No, he's been injured. I saw him the first week of OTAs. Okay. Him and the receiver, him and Braylon Sanders. Yeah, they were doing a rehab assignment. So this is a situation where, who's also impressed me, by the way, speaking of receivers? Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson is a guy who's playing like you're trying to take a bone out his mouth.
They kind of are.
Yeah, pretty much. My top list of guys I'll be watching in minicamp. Odell Beckham Jr. How much is he gaining or learning this offense? I know I'm actually going to be watching Jeff Wilson, because if like the way this guy is running right now, he is not letting anybody take his job. And I can respect that. Offensively, Liam Eichenberg. On defense, I'm gonna go with Deshaun Hand. I think if he can be solid, maybe the defensive line can be solid. With him, probably Tier Tart and Zach Sealer being the frontline players. Clearly, Chop Robinson is one of the guys that I'm clearly going to be keeping an eye on. And this is probably going to surprise you, but Jordan Poyer.
Okay.
I like Poyer. I believe he's a dog. I've seen too many. I think he's a great
dog.
Yeah, I think he's a great presence inside that locker room for everything that he brings.
Agreed.
You're not going to be a 33-year-old NFL safety without you bringing a laundry list of things that can benefit your team. But does he have the speed? Like, I watched him try to cover some of those running backs out the backfield, and I'm like, ooh, this isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is there's no backup behind him.
Which is why I have said if the Dolphins are going to make a move with the extra money that they got,
you'd go safety over defensive line.
Oh, I would, yeah. It's close. I mean, I would have no problem either way. But
the question is, if you don't need that safety, then you just wasted that money. I have a hard time believing you're not going to need that defensive line help. I know you made it through the season last year with basically 4 guys playing on the defensive line all season, but that was probably a roll of the dice, just lucky roll. And I don't know if you can carry that over to another season. So
no, but you're also not going to have 2 guys playing 85% of the snaps like Sealer and Wilkins did. And here's the other question to me: what you have to ask yourself if you're the Dolphins, and you have to be honest with yourself, is can we count on Jordan Poyer for the full season to be a Jordan Poyer who looks a lot more like pre-2023 Jordan Poyer as opposed to the guy he was last year?
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting question. I think Anthony Weaver's in the hot seat. He's got to prove a lot to me this season because they're going to more than likely have a top-ranked offense. Now, will that defense be able to carry their share of the load? We will continue to discuss that and more topics. I'm actually going to join Alain Poupart after minicamp on his podcast, the All Dolphins podcast. We look forward to continuing our discussion, Boo.
It's not doing it.
Yeah, you lost your privileges.
I lost the heart privileges.
All right. Always appreciate the time, Alan, and we will see you out at mandatory minicamp this week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Omar.